today I'm going to be sitting down with my good friend, Tracy Murray. Um, I've realized that a lot of us are, switching up our workout routine to adapt to what we have available. And for some, that means going from lifting heavy weights, from doing CrossFit regularly, to maybe running outdoors or doing some sort of at-home workout, which involves a lot of plyos. And I realize that these movements are a lot different from what we're used to. And I'm sure that it's impacting our bodies in ways we may not even be realizing. So I want to make sure that everyone's able to, recover properly and know how hard they should be going, how frequently they should be doing these types of activities. So I thought, what better way to try and portray that than to sit down with a professional in the field. So Tracy is a physiotherapist in Vancouver. And yeah, I'm excited to sit down and chat with her just a little bit about what you can do to make sure that your body is, healthy and happy and not in pain, especially if you're trying something new. And I think a lot of us too are spending a lot more time sitting down, being a little bit more sedentary, not getting up for walks as frequently. So just making sure that we're approaching that the best way that we can. So thanks for joining us, Tracy. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's fun to get to do this stuff with you. So just a bit about me, I guess. I did my kinesiology degree. I started actually at Western University and then went over to UBC to finish in kinesiology, and then further studied my physical therapy master's through UBC as well. And I mean, just so passionate about all things movement, but not only, getting strong, just keeping moving throughout the lifespan, right? So from when you're born all the way to, the end of years, just making sure that we can stay as healthy and fit as we possibly can. So I started my own journey as a gymnast when I was a lot younger and a lot more flexible. And then have kind of tried everything since. I just try lots of different things. I've dabbled in CrossFit, competed a little bit in that. Spent a little bit spent a little bit of time doing triathlon at Western. If we go back a few more years, I also cheered with the varsity team at Western University, which was a crazy time. So watching the cheer documentary was a little flashback for me. And then my most recent endeavor, since I had a little back injury last year after doing the CrossFit Open and maybe snowboarding a little too much at the same time, I finally found Pilates, and that's been my newfound love and my newfound way of rehabbing a ton of different injuries and disorders, even like concussion, vestibular conditions. Have been finding benefit with it. So once I did it for me, I just realized how much I could help other people and do lots of things.
Yeah. So I was lucky enough to be living with Tracy. I guess it was last year. We were roommates for a little while. And we were both going through a back injury, back pain. So we kind of were trying to figure that one out together. And yeah, I had Tracy at home to help rehab me, which was really, really grateful. And she's definitely really knowledgeable. And I think her experience in, the type of sports that I was also involved in, she kind of understood, the importance of getting back to my sport. And I was, just a really valuable wealth of knowledge. And I was really grateful to have her in my life at that time. And now I'm happy to be able to share some of her knowledge with you guys too. So I'm going to take you guys through maybe a couple different scenarios and maybe start with running, because I know that's something I personally don't do very frequently, but now have found myself trying to go out for a few runs here and there. And I struggle with knowing, how frequently I should be running, how far I should be running, how I should be changing my, warm up, cool down, stretching routine, and that sort of thing. So I don't know, what kind of aches and pains would one typically experience if they're going to start running after not running for however many years?
So I think when we look at running, there's just such a wide array of what could happen depending on each person. And I think I'll probably be saying that a lot during this whole thing, but everyone is so different, right? And what everyone experiences depending on their previous training load and their previous ability will maybe be different. Really how I approach things is kind of looking from the center and then down and up, right? So if you kind of have weakness in your core or in your hips or in your legs or in your thighs or in your wherever, there's going to be certain things that do more and certain muscles that aren't doing that much, causing a little bit of asymmetry or causing future pain later on. What's hard as an individual when you're starting running is you don't know how your body's going to respond. You don't know necessarily in yourself what is strong and what is weak. And so I think the best way to think of it is to just start slow and start smart. And one thing that I've really noticed with this whole quarantine thing is people are not starting slow. People are kind of going a little crazy, myself included. And I think you can kind of look at it a bit like New Year. And it's safe to say now that this is maybe going to unfortunately be the new normal for the next little while. So I think kind of looking at as how we always look at New Year now, where it's like, okay, what are our long-term goals? And how are we going to get there, as opposed to, okay, I can't go to CrossFit now. I'm going to do 21K every day because I have all this time. So my first recommendation would really be slow and steady and just wait so you can feel how your own body is going to respond, right? Do you feel great? Are your runners good? Like, do you feel good in running in your nanos? Like, probably not, So maybe get yourself a pair of runners that you feel comfortable running in. And then start to kind of think, where is my power coming from? Like, what's sore when I run in a good way, right? Like, are my legs sore? Are my glutes sore? Are my calves sore? And then you can kind of start to build a more customized rehab plan based on your own data, on your own body, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So if you went for, say, like a 10K run and you came home and the next day or the next 2 days, say your calves are really sore or your hips are really sore, does that mean that you should target those specific body parts in terms of like?
Yeah, I think it would be a good place to start, right? Because we could go down a whole rabbit hole of doing a ton of different things. But I think that's a good place to start for sure. I think doing a little bit of self-testing too and kind of seeing, and most of us are decently aware if we, try to lift our leg towards our face, can we get it even 20 degrees? How is our hamstring flexibility? How are our quads? Most people can kind of figure that out on their own. But if you're noticing that your calves are super tight and super sore after running, then it's a great place to start. I think when we look at main injuries from running, if to make a blanket statement, it's usually people are underusing their glutes, underusing their core, and then they're overusing kind of their calves and their quads. And so you can start seeing a lot of really tight hip flexors, so the front of the body, and then really, really tight gastrocs and even maybe hamstrings at the back of the body, leading to a lot of people get Achilles pain or calf pain, plantar fasciitis, which is kind of more the bottom of the heel. And I'd say those are the big ones, which then in turn come up into the knee, and you might get that really sore patella, like right on the kneecap, just because of improper loading. So I'd say those are kind of the three hot spots that we see. And I'd be way happier if you kind of came home from your run and you're like, ow, my glutes are on fire. It's like, perfect. Okay. Winning.
So what would
doesn't have that.
Obviously it's going to differ person to person, but if there are some generic stretches or warm-ups or cool downs that you would recommend if somebody is starting to get into running, what would those look like or be?
So I'll definitely post a little sheet for you after this. But the biggest thing that I would say is to have two separate kind of routines. You want to make sure that you're strength training for appropriate running. So that would be more like your glute activation, your hip strengthening, and that stabilization type of thing. If we're looking at someone who's maybe CrossFitting with a lot of heavy weights, or a power lifter, for example, that's now going down into a higher volume and lower weight lower load, you would maybe start wanting to incorporate some slow but lightweight movements so that we can start using stabilizers again. So I think a big strength training routine would include a glute exercise, as well as some sort of lunging exercise or unilateral exercise, right? So if we're going from squatting and deadlifting and clean and jerking, the thing with that is we're using both our feet on the ground and you're never just in a single leg stance. So if you think of running now, a prereq for running is you need to be able to balance on one leg and then hop from leg to leg. So doing more exercises in that single leg stance or in your lunge stance will transfer over much better in terms of running. So the strength exercises that I have will include a glute exercise and then a lunge exercise, as well as some hip abduction, just to get more of the external rotators in the hip involved. And then mobility wise, I would definitely get into the hip flexors, the calves, and then also the soleus, which is the muscle deep in your calf that you actually get to only when your knee's bent. So a more specific stretch that I think is often missed from people that are just Googling stretches on the internet.
Okay. That'll be super helpful, and I'll make sure to link the download, hopefully in the description or something, if I can figure out how to do that. I have one question. I don't know if this is specific to if you start running after not running for a long time, but shin splints, is that common when you just start up running out of the blue, or is that something that you always should be monitoring?
Shin splints is super, super common. So if we look at the different types of pain, like I said, Achilles tendinopathy, that's going to be at the back of the calf, kind of at the back of your foot, in where the muscle meets the heel. Plantar fasciitis is going to be at the bottom of the foot. And then shin splints is going to be at that front of the shin, the muscle that if you kind of flex your foot up, that's your tibialis anterior, and that can cause a lot of shin splints. If you're experiencing shin splints, again, I'd say the biggest thing, actually, if you're experiencing all of this pain, the biggest thing is load management. So definitely not increasing too much too soon. Maybe taking a day on and a day off so that you have enough time for the muscles and the tissues to heal in between. And then definitely doing a set of heel raises in different positions, which I'll also post to our sheets, just to make sure that the whole shin is being supported by the musculature around it.
Excellent. Yeah, that's
It's
something
hard not to get too complex here, but wait, I'll draw you a picture.
Okay.
The thing with shin splints, like where this can all get so complex, and sometimes this is why, like, not a shameless plug, but working with someone that can understand where it's coming from is really important. Because a lot of the time, you know, you can see shin splints and it's sometimes it's like, okay, get a different pair of shoes, boom, shin splints gone. And then other times it's like, okay, it's very obvious that your glutes aren't working, your hamstrings aren't working, you're leaning forward, right? And your tib and is then way overloaded.
Right.
So it's kind of thinking about the whole chain and what can do more work, right? If you think about your body weight, I love to kind of have people think about, okay, let's not have your shins hold your entire body weight, right? So use your core, okay, that takes 10 pounds. Use your glutes, okay, that takes 10 pounds off. Use your quads, and each little muscle you recruit to hold your weight up will take away the impact from that structure that's clearly getting overloaded when you're moving.
Right.
Right. And so you can look at directly at the injury and try to strengthen those tissues. But if the load put onto those tissues is way more than they're designed to take, you need to use other muscles to offload.
Right.
Okay. I'm no artiste. This is your foot. Okay. What we see a lot of when I get into the clinic is just an unequal distribution of force throughout the foot. So you'll see people will either be completely on their lateral aspect of their foot, which means that their center of mass is over here, right? Or they'll completely be falling in onto their foot. That's the collapsed arch patient, and they'll be kind of around here. And what we want is this nice, perfect little triangle of weight distribution throughout the foot. So that's where it gets really important when we're doing our heel raise exercises, that you're getting weight bearing through the base of the big toe as well as through all the front line of the foot. And I'd say that is a really important thing when we're talking about foot exercises, and doing specific exercises for shin splints, plantar fasciitis, or Achilles tendinopathy. Obviously, the core is really important. I think that a lot of people that run forget about their darn core. And so even just a simple thing like a dead bug exercise where you're laying on your back and you're lowering your opposite arm, opposite leg, I'll be putting that in the program. And just kind of doing, if you do your glute and your core exercise before you go for your run, it'll reprogram your brain to kind of be aware of potentially using those while you're running, which can be super helpful.
Right.
So yeah, if we look at, talking about the lower limb, so below the knee, then activating above the knee before you go for the run too.
Just like you would warm up for a squat or some other sort of.
Totally. And I think in terms of warm up, cool down, it's so dependent. Like some people just start running, and there's really not a ton of evidence to say, there's a ton of evidence both ways, which means the evidence is inconclusive, right? One year people will be like, warm up is the most important thing you could ever do, just kind of like eating breakfast is the most important thing you could ever do. And then the next year it's like, let's intermittent fast till noon. Like it's kind of the same with warm up and cool down. I think my biggest thing is do what feels best in your body. I used to be a no warm up queen. Then I got a back injury and now I'm like, I need to warm up, and I think the biggest thing is to just follow what works for you. I have a really stiff right foot, and if I don't warm up before I go, my foot hurts the entire run. So do a little assessment when you're doing your next run and think, okay, what hurts? Okay, I have shin splints. Okay, that's probably something I should warm up, Maybe I'll do a couple stretches before I go. I'll do my glute activation. I'll do my core. And then I'll do some heel raises and just get my foot moving. And then boom, try your run and see if you feel a little better.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of not ever warming up. So maybe that's something I should.
And I never used to either. And then, it's as simple as like a 5-minute little flow, right? That can really make a difference. And if it doesn't, then don't do it next time.
Great advice. Love it. All right. I guess we can touch a little bit on plyos, because I've been seeing that a lot just in all these at-home body weight workouts on Instagram and whatnot.
I think, especially all the home programs that are floating on the web right now, a lot of them are including a ton of plyometrics. And we kind of touched base on this the other day. There's nothing inherently wrong with jumping around, right? It's just what I see so often is the patients I see the most are patients that are like, I've tried every at-home program and I always get hurt. Why? Right? And it's like, is your body ready for that stimulus? And is it an appropriate stimulus? And is that stimulus benefiting you? And I think the biggest thing that we all need to question when we're deciding what program that we're choosing to do is, why am I doing this exercise? Like, what am I getting out of it? And is it simply just to burn calories? Because you could do that a lot of ways, right? And I think when it comes to plyometrics, a lot of what people are getting out of it is the feeling of like, oh, I just did such a hard workout, go me, right? Which feels pretty good. You're sweating. It only takes 10 minutes. You're like, I'm cool. I'm a rock star. I'm in quarantine and I'm sweating. But at the end of the day, like 4 days later, you can't move because your joints are swollen, and then you give up and it's New Year all over again. It's January 4th and you're out of your plan. So I think if you look at kind of just the basis of training, you don't like start running when you're 1 week old, you know? And I think that's something to really start thinking about is, especially for people that are now using this quarantine time as a new time to start exercising altogether. It's definitely think about, let's crawl before you can walk, before you can run. So when we look at muscle activation, when we're jumping, doing plyometrics, you're likely going to be using muscles that are definitely already strong because it's a fast movement. And when movements are fast and quick, we're not using any kind of small stabilizer muscles. We're just going to go straight to our global movers. And we're also going to go straight to the muscles that we use all the time. Now, this can be good if you have this great alignment, great technique, no previous injuries, you know, this like amazing facade that very few of us have. But if we start loading a movement repetitively because we don't have the luxury of various different machines or different barbells and whatnot, we're probably going to load that movement over and over and over for like 100 reps every day. That is you're gonna just keep doing that pattern of overusing the muscles that are already strong and underusing the muscles that are already weak, really just speed tracking your way to getting into whatever pain you were already in and worsening it.
Right.
So I don't want to sound like doomsday. Like, I love jump lunges, right? But when your jump lunge is not looking good, maybe just do a regular lunge first.
Right. And in terms of things that you should be focusing on for making sure that those movements are done correctly, I'm assuming core is probably one of them. Are there any other things that people should be, you know, really focusing on if they are going to?
I think a good way to look at it, and a good way to start at least, is to go through the movement nice and slowly and see if it's hard. Because chances are it will get hard eventually, or maybe sub out a little bit. Like, try, you know, say you're doing 20 jump lunges, maybe try like 18 regular and then 2 jump to get the stimulus at the end. Another thing that I really love to do, and this is maybe my Pilates coming in, is pulsing. So, you know, slowing things down, and then you can really take a look at your alignment, right? You can be like, okay, are my hips square? Is my rib cage over my pelvis? Are my knees falling all over the place, or are they tracking well? And go slow. And this is a great way of kind of getting all your little stabilizers to start working. And essentially, those stabilizers are the muscles that we love so much that keep us kind of healthy and happy. And they usually are the ones that are getting underused when you go into the physio clinic. So I'd say take your home program that you're already doing and try some of the movements slow down. Like, try going down eccentrically for 4 seconds in a lunge and then coming back up for 4 seconds. Go halfway, hold. Go down an inch, go up an inch, go down an inch, go up an inch. And then you can really self-assess. You'll see in that moment, things will start getting shaky and you'll see, oh shoot, my knee's starting to cave in. And then you can go, okay, push my knee out. And then you'll start to feel different muscles and have the time and attention to be able to kind of control what's going on as opposed to just repping it out.
Yeah, definitely. I want to hear a little bit more about the Pilates stuff and the pulsing and everything like that. I've never done Pilates myself. I've heard like a lot of my friends have started doing it and doing different classes as well that have a lot of the pulsing movements. So do you want to talk a little bit about those and how people might be able to integrate those into their routines nowadays?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a great way, like, especially now when we're homebound and we don't have a ton of equipment. I think, you know, if we start looking and just not being super controlling about technique and all that stuff, because I know sometimes with physios, it gets really overwhelming when we're almost too specific about technique, that you don't want to be worried, am I doing everything wrong, and then not end up doing anything at all. That's a big worry, right? But doing Pilates like a few days a week instead of something that would be load bearing during this quarantine, I think is such a great thing for so many people. So essentially it's based off of 5 basic principles. And really the first thing is the breath. So you want to be breathing appropriately throughout the exercises. And the reason why there's such an emphasis on breathing is actually for optimal core contraction, core recruitment, and just the way that your core interacts is much better when you're breathing. So if you think about your core, it's essentially created by a whole system that kind of is like a piston. So you have your diaphragm, which is where you're breathing into, and then you have your pelvic floor, and then all the way around it, you have your muscles containing your core, like your transverse abdominis, your oblique muscles, your ab muscles, and those all house the spine and then all of your internal organs. So when we're holding our breath and we're kind of crushing everything in, there's a lot of pressure that has to go somewhere, right? And we don't want pressure going, oh, I'm going to push this disc out of place, or, oh, I'm going to, not that it actually does. But when you think about it, we don't really want pressure. We want like a nice tightness in the system. So even just ensuring that you're breathing through your movements. So if you're doing a lunge, try to breathe in on your way down and out on your way up. You'll feel a little bit of stuff happening in your core. And that can be super helpful. And the other basic principles are really talking about your positioning. So if you're really one that I was astounded by is even if you just look at my posture in sitting. So if I anteriorly tilt my pelvis like this in my chair, you see how automatically my thorax and my neck is forwards, right? So if I suddenly posteriorly, this is a posteriorly tilt of my pelvis. If I just tilt my pelvis anterior, do you see the difference in how I'm sitting when I'm not even changing anything up here? So what you really want to think about is that sort of alignment. Like, is your rib cage sitting on top of your pelvis? And then is your neck kind of relaxed on top of your rib cage, and starting your movements from there.
That's also a good takeaway for people who are sitting at their desk for long periods of times too, or couch or wherever it may be.
Yeah, so kind of just going off of those basic principles, and then same as shoulders, right? Maybe I like to do a little thing called resetting. So say you're in your slump position and then you're like, okay, let's do a reset. So kind of sit up, tilt your pelvis forward, tilt your pelvis backwards, find center, right? Push your ribcage forward, push your ribcage backwards, sidewards, find center, right? Roll your shoulders forward, pull the shoulders back, shrug them up, find center. Same with your head, right? And then it's just like a nice little reset. And it's not that it's better to sit one way or another way. It's just best to not sit like this all day.
Right.
And same in your movements, right? Do that little check and then get into your lunge and start breathing and just feel it. It should feel a little better. I don't know.
Right. It's not like you need to sit like that all day or keep that position very strictly for the entire lunge or anything like that. But if you're starting there, that's going to leave you in a better position likely at the end, right?
Yeah, and it's always just good to kind of move into different positions all the time. I don't like to use like a fear-based practice of, hold your shoulders back the entire time that you're awake, because that can just create other issues. But it's just kind of being mindful of where are we sitting all day and where can we reset? And then also just trying to have the joints as centered as they can be when we're starting to move, and then starting to introduce loaded things like plyometrics.
Excellent. That's fantastic. And I know that you've been kind of playing around with your options for doing work remotely. Is there any, maybe possibility of you doing some sort of Pilates classes online or one-on-ones online?
Yeah, I'm looking into it. It's definitely been a really big shift for me because a lot of the work that I do is very hands-on. And I like to kind of tell people, like, I want you to move from here and here. And so it's going to be a big shift. But I mean, it's also been a really big eye-opener for me as to how many people would prefer to stay home and do their things at home. And so it really could be a big opportunity of maybe servicing clientele that wouldn't normally be able to get into the clinic.
Mhm.
So I'm trying my first Pilates class live tonight, and currently it's just open for people that I've already been doing classes for in the clinic.
Mhm.
But I'm testing it out, and we'll do some troubleshooting and hopefully be able to start some sessions with some patients online soon.
Excellent. Well, if you do ever open that up to, um, the public, I guess you could say, let us know and we'll share it with our community because I'm sure a lot of people would benefit from it and enjoy it. I know my mom being one of them, she's really looking forward to that becoming a thing. So keep us posted on that. And I'll be sure to share it with everyone listening too.
Yeah, and for now, we are doing telehealth appointments for anyone with physio needs. So if people do need a physio assessment, we're doing our best to do it via the computer for now.
Excellent. We'll link.
Hopefully not for too long.
Yeah. Or I'll just get really good at it and no one's ever gonna have to
I
work on it.
gotta work from home for life now.
Yeah. I'll be sure to make sure that we link that so people know where to find you if they do want an assessment. I think that would be really beneficial, especially during this time when our bodies are, going through a lot of different changes in the routine and everything like that. Because regardless of what it may feel like, we are building new routines, we are building new habits in our movements and our day to day, and we want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success when all this is over as well. We want to come out of it in a better situation than we went in. If
Maybe
possible.
even using the time, right, to kind of work on stuff that you might not have had the time before to work on.
Yeah, definitely. I'm seeing that with my core work.
Me too.
Something I always seem to neglect. And so
Yeah.
there's so much core work that you can do with body weight. That's a good opportunity for that. And I think that that's, one of the main takeaways from this whole situation, just looking at it from a larger perspective, that like we need to be finding the opportunities, right? Not dwelling on what we can't do anymore, but finding new things that we can do or new things that we can focus on. So that when normal life resumes again, if that even never happens, I don't know if life will ever go back to normal completely. But we're going to be in a stronger position than we would have been before we went into this, right?
For sure. And I think a good way to look at it, if especially for, I know a lot of your clients at least, and a lot of my clients are, they're signed up for races or they're signed up for competitions that they're no longer able to attend, or they're used to having that heavy stimulus of the dumbbell or the barbell, sorry.
Mhm.
Just kind of taking it, I know it's easier said than done, but sometimes an off season is important. And a lot of us that aren't in, a scheduled professional sport or like a high school sports team, we don't have off seasons anymore. So a lot of the times we run all year or we lift all year, and kind of just sometimes the best thing you can do for a body is not like the best physio exercise, but it's just variety, right? So taking some time to try some new things and move your body in new ways it can it could maybe put you at risk for getting an injury because you're doing something new, but it also makes your body beautifully resilient in a different way, right? And I think it's a great way to start looking at how can we just move our bodies in a different way for a little while so that we can go back better than we were before.
Oh, that's so motivating because I know a lot of people are really, really, concerned about that and they've had all these big goals and things that they're working towards. And again, it's just seeing the opportunities that aren't so obvious. And
Yeah.
making the most of
I
this.
think a big thing for me, and I mean, I'm definitely weaker than I once was, but something that's been crazy for me after taking a year off pretty much of CrossFit, I go like twice a week maybe, has just been the insane amount of strength that I still have. And I think that can kind of be a good parting words that, it takes a long time to lose strength unless all you're doing is sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
So definitely keep moving and training in other ways, and it transfers so well. And sometimes, the first 2 weeks getting back into the gym might feel hard, but you might even be better in a different way because you're rested and your body has had enough time to recover and you've had time to work on little things that you couldn't before. You never know, like you get your glutes a little stronger and your core a little stronger. Your back squat might need that more than it does just more volume of back squats,
Yeah.
right? So you definitely get stronger back squat if you're doing back squats, but you can also get a stronger back squat by doing a lot of other things. And I think it's definitely an opportunity to try some of those.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for all your knowledge, your tips. Looking forward to taking a look at the sheet that you put together as well. So thank you so much.
And I'll try to post. We'll see. No promises. I'm going to try and get better at Instagram, and I'll post some of them up there too.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, Tracy. And yeah, if anybody has any questions for her or you want to get in touch, I'll make sure to include her contact information below.
Awesome. Thanks. Take care, guys.
Bye.